Yeah, I think there's a slight difference between the last clip and this clip, isn't there? And that leads us to where we're going to be today. So, it's Monday, back from Silverstone. Car's still on the trailer. Car doesn't run. As you can see, the tent/stroke garage is empty, all but Marty. And I think he's deserting me now too. He must have heard there's some work to do. I hope you're all well. Yeah, a bit tired after the weekend, you know, long drive down there, long drive back, busy weekend, fuel pump to change. I think the driver's already said, you know, hell of a result. I'm really happy with how the car went in qualifying, absolutely brilliant. Managed to put the car on the front row of the grid, second place in qualifying. I think it was something like 0.3 of a second separate the first 5 cars, so for us in our little humble tent with our very humble tool setup, I think we've managed to do pretty well. Obviously it takes us a long time to get there, but we've sort of got there. As usual, you know, there's always something that's going to turn around and bite you in the butt when you're having a run of bad luck, and we seem to be having a bit of a run of bad luck at the minute. So we qualified second, absolutely chuffed to bits, over the moon. Then it went downhill from there. First race, fuel pump packed up, 1 lap done. Out of the blue. So we got that sorted, car running. Second race, with tyres again. Well, we had a red flag, and I think it was 2 laps in, or 1 lap into the race restart. So we've had a look, and we think it's crank thrusts, the little bearings that sit on the middle web in the block and prevent the crank from sliding side to side. So when we're putting the foot on the clutch now, it stalls the engine, so the engine will run, but when we put the foot on the clutch, the engine stalls. So what I'm going to be doing, first I've got to get the car off the trailer. Obviously can't run it, it just cause more damage. We want to limit the damage. We're hoping to get away with a bearing change. We're praying that there's no crank damage. Whether we'll be that lucky, that's a different story, isn't it? Anyway, what I'm going to do now, I'll go shuffle the van, shuffle the trailer, shuffle the car, push the car in here, push the trailer back on the drive, shuffle everything around. Then I'll be back on, and we'll start pulling the engine out. Once we've pulled the engine out, obviously we'll be on to a strip down, find out what's wrong with it, hopefully cure it, because we've got 3 weeks before Brands Hatch, which is the mini racing festival, and that is that's the one we didn't want to miss. That's a big one for us. So yeah, we've got 3 weeks to sort it. Fingers crossed we can get it done. Hopefully the driver can get the budget sorted and we'll be at Brands. Right, I'll go get this car off a trailer, get it in the garage, and I'll be right back with you. See you in a moment. Alright guys, so we've got the mini off the trailer, we've got the trailer back on the drive, van's not blocking up the street anymore, we've got the car in the garage. We've had a quick nosy at the fuel pump. We've fixed the fuel pump. It's good old fashioned British engineering, isn't it? There's no micro switches, there's no circuitry, there's nothing really electrical. It's a solenoid really of the pump. Anyway, I've pulled it apart, took the clips out, took the filter out, we put the clean filter in. We will put clean, obviously we haven't now, you can see it's filthy. So pulled it apart, give it a quick once over, got it running. I think some muck's got in there and it's just stuck the piston basically, so I don't see the point in not keeping it as a spare. So we'll put that back together, strip it down, put it back together, and we'll keep that one as a spare. We're running this little fella here is supplied by Moss Europe. Saved the day for us on the weekend, obviously, you know. So anyway, that's the fuel pump. That's what caused our first DNF. So our next DNF, we'll move up to the front of the car. Like I said, we suspect it's the thrusts which sit on this centre web and stop the crank from moving side to side. So obviously when you put your foot on the clutch, there's quite a bit of motion forcing the crank over. Without that, obviously you've got problems, and we've now got problems. What I'll do, I'll shove the camera so you can see the bottom pulley, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the car, I'm going to put my foot on the clutch. You guys can have a look, see how far it moves. Then what I'll do, I'll come back, I'll put a bar in, and then I'll see how far it moves myself when I move it back with the bar. Right, I'll go put my foot on the clutch. If you guys keep an eye on that pulley for me. Alright guys, did you see any movement there? I'm going to put a chisel in, and I'll go against the bottom pulley and the radiator mounting bracket, and I'll see if it moves any from here. Yeah, that's definitely moved. I don't want to go on this side, it's a bit delicate, but let's have a look. There's a little bit of movement there. Obviously I don't want to force too hard, but that way, when I push the pulley back in, I can feel it and see the pulley move. So yeah, it's the thrust. So we're going to be stripping the engine out. We'll probably start off with the top, take off the nice bits before we have to start crawling around on the floor. Get them out of the way, get the engine ready to pull, get it out, and then it's clutch and gearbox off time. And have a look at this crank, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the crank will be alright. Right, as it is Monday and it's roasting out there, I'm going to go get myself a drink, go have a quick bite to eat, and then come back and we'll start pulling this engine out with you guys. Right, see you in a bit guys, it won't be long. Alright guys, so had a quick drink, quick bite to eat, and I've come back out and I've pulled the oil. Let's have a look at the sump plug, shall we? I think we've got a good bit of bearing material on the magnet there. A lovely picture of what's gone on inside the engine. Let's just hope we've not damaged the crank. Right, so the oil's drained out, so what we'll do after the oil drains out, we'll drop the fluid to the radiator. I'll move the car back so I don't want to be rolling around in coolant. I wonder if I put coolant in the other day as well. I'm going to be dropping it. Hey ho. So we'll drop the coolant, move the car back in, and then we'll start pulling this engine out. Probably get the servo out of the way, get the radlet out of the way, alternator, starter motor, inlet manifold, of the auxiliary radiator. We'll have to pull the exhaust off, separate the joint down the bottom of the LCB, and then get the mounts off and get it ready to pull out. So we don't have a crane here, which is a bonus, so I'll be having to rope in some power passerby to give us a lift with the engine. Anyway, I'll knock this off while I roll the car back and drop the fluids. I'll get back on while we're stripping the engine. I'll give this plug a quick wipe. I'll put the camera down if I can. it's a fair bit of bearing material by the look of it. Anyway, let's not dwell on that too much. I'll loosely put the sump plug back in. Will that? I don't know. Have we stopped running oil yet? Oh, we're just on the last drips. Right. I'll let that drip out and we'll get back to this once we've got the fluids out. Speed isn't it, guys? Okay guys, so we're back on it. We've dropped the water out, we've dropped the oil out, we've disconnected the battery, so we'll start pulling it apart, get it ready for the engine to come out. First we're going to take the servo and pedal box out. It's all 13 mils or ½ inch. Store the nuts and bolts on the car, and all ready when I come back from. We have a little cheat with these. We put the flexi hoses on as opposed to the old metal pipe work. And that allows us to leave the brake lines connected so we don't have to re-bleed the brakes when we're done. We can just put the servo back in place. That's a tight one, isn't it? Get this nut off, disconnect the servo pipe, pull a little split pin which connects us to the pedal and the pedal box. And then we can get the servo out there and start moving on and getting some other things pulled out. This pin, R-clip, and this clevis pin I will put back together on the brake assembly as soon as I move this out of the way, because I don't want to lose that. It's not quite as easy as replacing a nut and ball. Right, so that's the servo out of our way. Press that on the wing. Get that pin back in. We'll get the rods off. We'll disconnect a few pipes first and get rid of this auxiliary radiator first. So this one's the outlet at number 4, end of the cylinder head. It's nice and tight. Oh, there, isn't it? There we go. So I'm going to 10mm get radiator off. nice simple one bolt affair. We'll be storing all the parts in the car. It's about the best place to put them. It's the safest place to put them anywhere. I'll put this nut back on the end of this bolt. Look at me there when I come back to it. Right, we'll see all these bad boys are going to go. A few rads to hoses to disconnect and get that rad out of the way again. What day did we put the rad in? Was it Thursday? It's back out again already. At least it done its job for as long as we ran anyway. Qualifying temperatures were absolutely fine, no problem at all. I suspect the rest of the day would have gone and stayed that way, and radiator had done its job. Right, so Jubilee clips off, pipes out the way. Get these breathers out as well. Right. We'll get this top out. Obviously we've disconnected the bottom hose already. Top nut, bottom bolt, wangle it out. Just being careful not to damage the radiator on the blades. That's a hot one today, mate. Jeez. It's not the best day to be working inside a tent. Hold the nut on the bottom, same the other videos, we've stripped the threads in thermostat housing some years ago. Probably better off if these things were in on the Velcro, to be fair. See if we can get this nut rubbed up and on the floor. Look at that one big mozzie. Let's hope not. Right, let's wangle this past these hoses and past these radiator blades. And, we'll let the rest of the fluid drain out into the container. Get this hose out without losing the Jubilee clip. We'll keep it all in one piece. And it'll just sit in the car with the rest of the auxiliary parts. And there goes the Jubilee. We'll get back to that. Right, well, that's the rad out of the way, so get the thermostat housing off and get this top stabiliser bar off. There's a little bit more room to obviously getting to the nuts and that on the manifold. Release the spring, we have a little spring, goes on the side of the throttle, it's just an extra throttle return spring. The MSA says we have to have it, and no problem for me putting one of them on. So I'll undo this throttle cable now and get it out of the way. I end up knocking the spanner somewhere where I can't find them. Obviously we'll have the fuel hose to come off. Put these spanners back. 1/16 for the back of the wheel, I think, or was it 19? Can't remember. 1/16 is. Spin at that end, so let it get a span on it. Right with you. These spanners in so many places. See what we've got here. Okay. Take a bit tight on this segment. Put Stillsons on it. I think the thread's got a bit damage on the end previously, so it really doesn't want to move that much, so I'm going to put some Stillsons on the middle of the threaded bar. Don't mind if I damage the threads in the middle of that bar. Never gets that far anyway. Right, see if we can get these to bite. There we go. Obviously once we get the engine down we'll run through stripping it, having a look at them mains. Obviously we know the thrusts are going to be shot with the front, and the mains are alright and that the crank's alright. Right, so that's off. Drop the hat. Don't want to say I'm lathered, but geez. I'm getting as much as I can done and having a break, I think. I'm cooling down before I'll come back in and go again. I'll probably try and get all the top parts off. Leave the gear linkages and exhaust, possibly, and then I might get overexcited and carry on anyway. We'll see how it goes. I better get a cover for the floor in the car. Start making sure parts are going in there. I don't want to come to the end and have to be looking for nuts and bolts and thermostat housings or anything else like that. Here's one for you. I hope you can see that. That's our thermostat, and that's how we run it. Now, I know some of the people know why we're doing that, so we can get a lot more coolant through, so our engine doesn't overheat. I don't know if anyone out there knows why I'm using this and why I'm not using a blanking plate or a blanking sleeve, whatever you want to call them, the little brass sleeve which normally sits in. A quick explanation is this is these cylinder heads are supplied to our championship. They're a CNC machine cylinder head, but they were based on the MPI casting. Now the MPI casting is a bit different and has a ridge, and it won't allow the sleeve to sit in. So if I want something to restrict the flow of water to make sure I'm getting a good flow at this end, that's the best thing we can do really. And it seems to work, like I say. Touch wood. Not having many problems in the way of cooling. Other than we got a leaky radiator, but I think that was more the driver impacting someone than anything else. Prise it off a bit more carefully, I want to empty my hands. Put a cover on the floor. Right, cover on the floor. A little bit of start and go in the car now. Put the rest of the thermostat housing. Now I'll pull these studs and then I can pull the stabiliser bar. It's the closest thing to hand with the Snelsons again. Will I get access for these? They keep me off the threads. Maybe it's nip up. Oh, it looks like we're going for bad boys. Small grips it is. Not the greatest tool to do it, and obviously it will scar it, but I'm not doing it on the threads, so there won't be no thread damage. And the amount of times these have been in and out again, if there was going to be a problem, I dare say to read its head by now. So other than a little bit of cosmetic, the spanners out where it's starting to build up a collection. I don't want to hear them falling out of the car when it drives off the trailer at some event, so I'll keep a check on the spanners now and where they're at. Mainly, I can't afford those spanners. Oh, we do this weather cooling down. Okay, so this is the third one. Once I get the third one out, pull the stabiliser bar off, and that can go in the car. My back isn't made for working over cars, sure of it. Screwdriver just to prise it rubber off the back. off that and stay there so it's nice and safe, and then we'll come back. And not nothing on the floor. Right, that's a top stabiliser out of the way and the thermostat housing. I don't want to keep going on about it, but this heat is ridiculous. Absolutely melting. Right. I don't know if it become a war of attrition. I'll be trying to remember as I get heat stroke what I'm supposed to be doing. Don't worry, it won't come out really. Right, so I'll get this coil, we'll get the dizzy out of the way, we'll get the alternator, get the starter. I might as well move this manifold out now. I haven't got the exhaust manifold freed off yet, but I can get the inlet manifold out. Might need a bolt to plug the hose for the fuel. So obviously that's got to come off. Just a quick whittle while I'm pulling it off. Since we started racing, this car has been on a rolling road twice. Once when it was an SPI, and then when we started with a carb. When we started converting over to the carb, the only problem was we had a distributor with a totally wrong advance curve. We couldn't get above 18 degrees advance, so it didn't end up getting tuned properly, but I knew what sort of degrees, so after that it's all been tuned by trial and error. But say we seem to have got there. It's by the time it's took us to got there, I think we've wiped our bearings out at the bottom, which is a bit of a shame, but we have got there now. We have got the tuning side of this done. We know the top end and everything. Well, we're hoping the top end and everything's still good, so this should still go back and be a competitive engine, which was built on I think a shoestring would be extravagant. I think this is less than a shoestring budget. And again, without the help of some of the other competitors, like take Slarks for one, donated a piston so that it get me back in the race. You know, we were at a meeting, lost the engine, needed a new piston, couldn't get hold of one. Slarks donated one free of charge. It's like these are supposed to be the people who are your competition. But great camaraderie, great. So from like one mechanic to another, you know, some good, not just the drivers have good camaraderie, but the mechanics do too. Again, Octane Racing, Laura Harris's mechanic. Anyone needs help, and anyone will stop, drop, and do whatever they can to help you, which is it's a bonus, I tell you. We don't all have the equipment of some of the garages, and also we definitely don't have the equipment of some of the garages. We did have more tools, but obviously as years go on, tools disappear, you lend tools out, tools don't come back. We had a YouTube comment recently. Obviously it took me a while. I didn't want to take the wheel off to get a screw out down on the top arm bump stop. So every screwdriver I had in the garage didn't actually fit the slot very well, so I had to go get another one which I had to give a tap. So we had a comment just about an impact driver. Do we not have an impact driver? I've had a couple of impact drivers, but someone will pop round, someone will say, "Can I borrow your impact driver?" Yeah, no bother, no bother. You forget all about it, you'll go to use it and it's not being returned, you can't remember who borrowed it, so that's where most of the tools end up going, you know. But hey, it is what it is. Obviously if anyone sends us an impact driver, you know, and I'll have one if someone else wants to borrow it and lose it again. Right, I'll carry on, so I'm just sweating all over this engine here. I'll tell you what we'll do, I'm going to pull that camera off the stand a second and I'm going to show you the opening our Sunday. Let's get this coil out of the way. Oh yes, 8 mil balls. 2 6. 8 mil, not even these. So yeah, after a weekend I'm pretty chuffed with myself. I think I've earned the right to build a car. I mean, I'm machined the needle myself, I did the advance curve myself, and this is with no rolling road. It was just, like I say, old school tuning by the ear. It could have been a lot more efficient if we had a rolling road, which we could use, but we don't have a rolling road. We don't have the budget to use a rolling road, so if I wanted to use a rolling road which is comparable, so I can compare it to other competitors' figures, it's about a 5-hour drive. Yeah, so with fuel prices nowadays, I don't really want to be up and down the country, because by the time we've done that, we won't be able to afford the rest. And it does boil down to that. It's like tools. I'll say to Tracy, we need some new tools. So you'll get gently reminded that all new tools come out the racing budget. And if we don't have a racing budget, we don't race. And if we don't race, we don't need new tools. There we go, as you can see, on the Sunred, this protrusion here, that stops us from putting a blank in the sleeve in. I looked at it and thought, yeah, I could cut the blank in the sleeve out, but I didn't really, it's not really structurally, once you've cut it in half and cut a slat out of it, so I didn't really want to do that. So, like I say, with after excuse me, I'm wiping the sweat off my face and trying not to drip it everywhere. So yeah, that's what we've done. Thermostat. Use a thermostat, and that helps us a blank in the sleeve to run some of the pressure up. Again, it's just because it's the MPI casting. See what cloth here. And that's my casting. Super Mighty Mini. And then we've got the numbers which just relate back to it, and it's comes back at number 18. Could be 15, jeez, maybe I need my glasses on it. Right, I'll hire you back in the stand and we'll crack on. This is because I'm wasting time just showing the engine numbers. Not really productive. Right. So what we're going to pull now, we'll pull the dizzy so we can get that chunk of engine out of the way. With my timing light, I have a shorter 11mm and I've wrapped some tape over the end. Because when we're doing it, we always end up shorting out on the alternator. And although it's not causing a major issue, it's not great, and it does grab your attention a touch. Speaking of which, we'll have the alternator disconnected. There we go. Right, we'll undo the clamp for the distributor without fear of it arcing out, because we've got the battery disconnected. Other than the safety feature, the emergency pulls for the electric are a great feature for working on a car. It saves you disconnecting the battery all the time. If you've got them old lead post terminals where the screw goes through the middle, geez, you don't want to disconnect them too much. They don't last very long. Most of my problems when I was a kid, battery problems, discharge problems, car won't start, was always down to them. Obviously when you're a kid you don't have money for the maintenance, do you? Let's pull this cap off and make it a bit easier. out the way. We run the Alden Red distributor. Well, see if I'm in the camera here. So we run the Alden Red distributor. Hold it the right way up and all that. I say it's the Alden Red. The difference between that and the yellow basically is an advance curve, so this isn't actually a red because, like I say, we've modified the advance curve ourselves to get what we needed. We thought the red was pretty close, and it was pretty close, but to get our upper degrees that we needed, we had too much degrees at cranking, so obviously the engine doesn't want to crank, it's too tight. And then you're not in the optimal area when it goes through the curve either. So we modified it, we moved a bit of material from the stop to allow it more movement, and modified the springs to let us on what would be what, from about 4,500 RPM the spring really tightens up a bit just to control that last opening, so it's not just flying straight up and you get a nice smooth curve as opposed to it just ramming straight on. But the first part of the curve is quite fast, quite aggressive, but that last bit we just wanted a little bit of control on it, and it just allows us to run, like I say, the timing figures we need to get the performance we need. And it's surprising how much timing and fueling is a massive part of these. Obviously camshaft timing, just the whole timing is, it's like comedy, isn't it? It's all about timing. If you don't get your timing wrong, your joke's terrible. Or if you don't get your timing right, your joke's terrible. And if you do get your timing wrong, well, damn. Anyway, so yeah, it's like comedy. It's got to be timed right. Everything's got to be timed right. Cam's got to be timed right. We have a special little trick which we do to time the cam. Even though they're only a standard cam, they're not where we need them for what we're doing with them. So we've got the engines at full chat most of the time. You know, we're not driving around town, we're not nipping to the shops, you know, we're not just pootling around. We want them to do what they do, all of it at the top end, all of it flat out. So we're not bothered about drivability low end, because we're never going to be driving it low end. The only time we drive it low end is if we're just up and down the pits, or plodding backwards and forwards to scrutineers or assembly area. But in a race, it's always flat out, and I think every racing driver would sacrifice a bit of drivability and lose power. Anyway, I'll shove this in the car, stop that, and we'll pull some more bits off. You might think the rattling on is just to kill a bit of time. You're right, it is. Might get my breath back, I suppose, and kill a bit of time. Anyway, let's get this dizzy cap out of the way as well. Right, so we might as well pull a fan, pull the alternator. So we've got an 11mm by hand, so we'll use that one. I do like these ratchet spanners. I have them in a few of the sizes for the Mini. Not all the sizes I'd like to use for the Mini, but again, for the decent ones are quite expensive, and the decent ones tend to outlast the poorer ones. Obviously, built out of better material. So I'll just have a mix of the blue points and back on. It's more or less the remains of sets that we've had. Okay, there's one, the space has dropped out. We've managed to keep hold of that one. Nice. Get the pulley out of the way. That little space has gone down by the damper pulley. Right, I'll free my hands up and then I'll get that one out. I don't know, I think the engine spent more time in the passenger side of this car than it has in the engine bay sometimes. Right, let's see if we can get this other spacer out and get that with its friends. Now you can pull the alternator. I'll just spin the top ones off first. There's the two top ones left, so I'll just loosen the 9/16 off. Let's hope it doesn't slip. Persuade that to sit on a bit better. No, we'll get a socket on that I think, or we end up destroying it. Try and fill it. Extension off. That's going to slip as well. It's not sad, seen better days I think. I think we're trying to 14 now. With a bit of persuasion I think this one will do it hopefully. Oh, there's something else I'll have put on my wish list. A new nut for this alternator adjuster. Right. So you know that'll be going back on. That's a nut and washer. As you can see
something a bit second hand. We really should have a look and see if we've got something kicking about that'll do a better job than that, because I think we're going to end up getting in trouble otherwise, and that's going to one day maybe not want to come off so willingly. Not saying it won't come off willingly there. This one side off. That's the other side. So again, I'll hide the nuts and bolts back on. We're hoping it's not going to be full engine strip this, we're hoping it's just the bottom end, and I'll be able to get away with not taking the head off. I'll just be a bit careful what I'm doing with the rods. As long as there's no damage to the rods obviously, and then that's a different story, but like I say, there seems to be no damage elsewhere. It just seems to be at the crank on them thrusts, hopefully just the thrusts, not the crank. If that's a crank I've got to find, and a crank to get balanced. Right. This alternate rod work. Oh yeah, that's a car filling up nicely now. Right, might as well go for the starter motor. So just 13mm to disconnect our positive and our feeds. Obviously there's one spade connector, we just use the later type starter motors where the solenoid's piggybacked onto them. Although we do have a little trick that we've had to perform. I'll show you that in a second. These cables off. The only cable we've got to disconnect now before we pull the engine is front light speed. Right, we'll have the oil filter out as well. I won't do that now obviously. Just want to pull the starter motor. So like I was saying, our starter motor, I'll pull the camera off, show you. I'll take the glove off for this, obviously the gloves are getting a bit mucky now. Nice. Right guys, so as you can see, I'd like to put a spacer in between our starter motor. See, these are just standard starter motors, so they're not really set for what we have as a flywheel. So we use the MED flywheel, and it doesn't quite mesh with some of these starter motors, so there seems to be quite a bit of tolerance in the starter motors, and it's also how far the flywheel's sitting on the crank. But between that anyway, without just putting this spacer in between, we don't get no starter motor. But with that spacer in, the starter motor works fine. Right, I'll show you back on the stand and we'll get this starter motor out of the way. Oh, feel the heat of the camera as well. We'll spin this top bolt out of the way and get the bottom one out. So obviously 2 bolts on the starter motor, 1 top, 1 bottom. Again, 9/16. Or 14 if that's what you got handy, and that is a worth 14mm. Try another one that hasn't been used as a hammer. I do have a 9/16 kicking about again. By the time you race them, by the time you find them. Not like we're doing restorations, so you wouldn't repair a race car quickly on a budget. One spacer out. So what we had to do, we had to crudely hack a bit off just so we can get them in, and then that spaces out so our starter motor works. Might not be the prettiest engineering solution, but the solution it is. Right, that's the starter motor out. Might as well put these starter motor bolts back into the casing. I think the safer way of doing it. At least you know they're going to be there when you go back to them. As long as you've wound them in plenty, that is. So what have we got left? We've got a top stabiliser, we've got the clutch. Again, just 2 bolts on this. Sort of simplified them a bit, putting the med one in. You don't have to reach as far down, you don't have to be undoing the little 11mm bolt and trying to get it back in. It cuts out a bit of messing. Obviously, you know, preference on the road's a different thing. Some say, oh, your Volto's a better clutch on the road and these are better for competition, but I think if you're driving a classic Mini, you shouldn't be too worried about road comfort. You should be enjoying the car. Anyway, right. So we'll pull this manifold there. Let's get that out of the way. So we want a short extension and a 13mm. I use a little vacuum ratchet. The increments are quite tiny, which for these 2 nuts either side of the centre branch of the exhaust is quite useful, because you don't get much of a turn. Now, like the Snap-on types, it's quite a big clunk, so I'm struggling to get a turn. It'll clunk and you struggle to get a turn, whereas this you normally get quite a bit of work done with it. So the middle one came in get on it up. See, you don't have much movement, but with these finer toothed ratchets, make it a lot easier. It's the same as what they've done with bike hubs, really. Apparently the quicker the engagement is on a bike, the further you will travel for any given input. There's a boring thing for you. Right, that one's just about at the end. It shoots right off, and we'll park these in the gutter for now. Oh, that's my favourite one, this. You know where you get the nut right to the end and it wants the ratchet back on, but it only wants the ratchet back on, so you'll end up dropping it. But let's give it another go and let's get these last couple of turns out of this nut so we can get on to the other ones. Right, it's free. Get this out of the way. Again, I don't think this is the greatest day for doing this. I'll put that nut there, I'll come back to the washers. But as time is of the essence and all that. What, less than 3 weeks to go to the Brands Hatch Mini Racing Festival, and that's a big event on the calendar really. Combining show, combining drum balls, combining racing, fastest mini in the world race. Yeah, we don't want to miss that. Well, I'm just pulling these out in no particular order. This one wants to come out with a stud, which is very kind of it. Really will have to replace this exhaust system at some time. We've had it fill up with water once when it was outside, but thankfully it's a quality system made of quality steel. We've had this on a car quite a few years. Well, back when it used to be a SPI, so it's still got the SPI manifold on, and we still have the sensor stuck in the manifold. I don't know if it's restricting any airflow in there. I can't imagine it is. But it's a bit unsightly having the exhaust with some sheared off wires, because there's no way the sensor was coming out, and there's no point taking it out anyway, so it makes a very effective plug anyway. Another one where I've had to use odd shaped washers. This is one of the mini spares. Is it a CHT inlet manifold or something like that? Quite a few different companies do it. It's the same pattern, but it don't like sitting alongside LCB exhaust. I imagine that's pretty common right the way across, so we have to do a few adjustments with washers, a little bit of grinding of the manifold just to make them fit nice and snugly and ensure that we have no gas leaks or air leaks. So it's just getting ridiculous here. Oh, and that bolt doesn't want to come off. Nut, come on, nut bolt, wherever you want to be. It's the only thing with ratchet, it doesn't have the release and lock on. Normally don't worry about it too much. As long as it does this bit.
I'm going tennis.
Oh, Okie dokie, bye. Take care, love you. Hey, there we go, that's that fella out. Right, come on, nuts to pull. Oh, why can't you just spin off? Ah, because the stud's spinning with it. Every time I do the engine, I'll take the nuts off the studs when they come out like that, and I'll put the studs back in and tighten them up. And every time I take them apart, there's always 1, 2, 3 of them want to come back out like that, so you've got to redo it. I do like it when the nut comes off and the stud stays on. Obviously, unless I want to be taking the studs out, which I don't. Yeah, our little coolant temperature sensor. So we had to put a sleeve in because we had nowhere to put a coolant temperature sensor. I didn't want to drill the head and put the sensor in there. It doesn't look like the thickest casting, as the mountings were more used for, I think it was the alternator. I can't remember rightly, it's been a while since I had an MPI. So yeah, didn't want to be drilling it, so we put the temp sender in that hole there. Nice, suppose I might fall out of it. Let's disconnect it. Yeah, just doesn't want to go past the exhaust manifold. It's so close to fit with the exhaust manifold. Until I get this out and let the exhaust manifold go all the way back, I don't think it's going to let me have it. Okay, there's another one come out with the stud. Again, another modified washer, and that was just so we could get it in alongside the manifold. Otherwise we couldn't get a washer in wide enough to get a good contact on the manifold without it crashing into the inlet float part of the manifold. Anyways, I think we're about ready to go again here. I have to use a bit of persuasion. Wash it out. Nice. That's our carb out. Lower inlet. We'll hide that in the car, out of the way. Whoa. Again, before I'm in the car, I'll trip over something. We don't modify these in any way other than, you can see, grind that as far as you dare just to get a washer in, but you don't modify the throats in any way. But you can spill petrol on the engine, probably help clean it. Just to keep everything nice and level, you know, it just saves loads of people saying, oh, they've got this magic inlet manifold that does all sorts, when they haven't. They're doing something else and they'll leave you on a dance telling you they've got this magic manifold that does all sorts, just to sell you a load of them. Okay, oh, that's business. Now, I think when I've put another cover down in the case, we're starting to run out of floor space. Oh, when I said it was going to be a hot one, it weren't wrong. Oh. Right. So, we've got just about everything off. Obviously this manifold will come off a bit better when we split the underside of it and take it off the exhaust. Depending on once to split, sometimes we just wangle and pass, but it can be a bit of a nightmare, to be fair. I'll have to think about that. Anyway, we've got the clutch cylinders, a couple of 9/16 bolts holding the clutch cylinder on, and we can pull that out of the way. And then that just leaves us the oil filter head and the feed tube. I'll get that out of the way so now we know it's not going to get damaged while the engine's being moved about. And then we'll move on to the bottom stuff. Oh yeah, top stabiliser bar. Might as well pull a top stabiliser bar before we forget about it again. Might change the bushes in this bar. I've been in a while and I've loosened it there, so it's not really a fair thing, I suppose, although it may well be.